50 years after the events of the final Harry Potter books, and Harry Potter is now headmaster of Hogwarts, ready to usher in a brand new generation of witches and wizards. My name's Radio Mike, and I love Harry Potter. In fact, I love Harry Potter so much that when I was a kid, I wrote an entire series of fan fiction books based on Hogwarts. This is book 1 in that series. Welcome to Harry Potter and the Boys. Hello, Gandalf haters, and welcome to Harry Potter and the Boys, a fan fiction podcast by me, Radio Mike. Oh, Jack Post, my guest today. Welcome back to Mikey Road Studios, Jack.
I love being here, Mike. Do you say Gandalf haters because Harry Potter is the natural enemy of Lord of the Rings?
Yeah, and I realised when I said it, like, if you like Harry Potter, it's probably more likely that
you
you'd
like Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, but like, I guess, you know, Gandalf... If you're going Gandalf and Dumbledore and you're a Harry Potter fan, you're probably vouching for Dumbledore. So in that situation, you'd be a Gandalf hater.
I haven't seen any of this online, but I imagine there's a lot of Lord of the Rings fans, like traditionalists before Harry Potter came along, that's accusing J.K. Rowling of stealing some elements of Lord of the Rings. I just watched the movies, and there's one movie where... like 100 golems come out of the water at the end of the episode or the end of the movie, and Dumbledore...
Half-Blood Prince?
Yeah. So they're on like an iceberg in a cave.
Yeah.
And Harry Potter reaches down into the water, and then these golems start coming out, and they're just Gollum from the Lord of the Rings. But there's 100 of them.
I mean, yeah, I think all fantasy worlds are similar.
But they're very Golem-y.
Yeah, well, on that note, this is Harry Potter and the Boys, the only Australian fan fiction Harry Potter podcast that is growing week by week, and it's great to have a proper celebrity like you on the show.
Oh, thanks, Mike.
You're obviously Jack Post from Hamish and Andy, Christian O'Connell Show, Jackie Road Studios, Release the Sounds, and a lot of other cool stuff.
Yeah, no, that's about it.
Yeah, two episodes of an AFL Essendon podcast.
4 episodes, thank you, Mike.
I guess
we hated Gandalf as well on that.
Where I want to start with you is you're actually the first guest on the pod that probably was too old for Harry Potter, essentially. Like, I think you're a little bit outside of the generation of when Harry Potter was massive, like high school students reading and waiting for the new books and movies. What are your thoughts on Harry Potter?
I was in primary school when Harry Potter came out.
Yeah, but like, I mean, I look at you and like, you said you've never read the books, right?
I was so young when the first book was read to me by my mum because I was too young to read it.
There you go. Wow.
Well, I could read, but my mum read my brother and I the first book as we were going to sleep.
So how many books have you read from the franchise?
I read the first 3.
Okay, so you never got past Prisoner of Azkaban?
No.
And you have
They started getting significantly bigger after that.
Goblet of Fire definitely was a noticeable addition of pages. Yeah. But then Order of the Phoenix is the longest. 6 and 7 are actually both shorter. So it actually starts going backwards.
Right.
Yeah.
Is that on, you measure them up next to each other on thickness of... what's it called? The spine.
Yeah,
spine.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. But you have told me that you have been rewatching all of the Harry Potter films over the last few weeks.
Yes. So I haven't ever watched all the films.
Okay.
I watched the first one when I was a kid and definitely young enough to enjoy Harry Potter, despite your slander.
No, I just meant that like your generation, like people in their 30s are probably less inclined to love Harry Potter than people in their 20s.
I feel like I was part of the original generation where people loved Harry Potter.
All right,
well, I
totally miscalculated you.
Yeah, I think you were late. If anything, we all talked about Harry Potter in the early 2000s, and it's 2020, and you're still doing this. So the movies, and then I worked at a cinema in 2004, 2005. So as I was watching,
would have been out at that time, I think.
The one where they go to the school dance.
Yeah, that's Goblet of Fire.
Because I had to clean the cinemas as the credits are rolling, and they play. It was the only like credit scene where they didn't have magical music. They had the band that plays at the school dance.
The Weird Sisters.
Yeah, isn't that breaks away from like the whole magical world a little bit, don't you think?
I agreed with that. Like in the Yule, it's called the Yule Ball, and the band, they're in the book as well. The band the Weird Sisters plays.
Yeah.
It's like a rock and roll band, and it definitely does kind of break the illusion that this is a fantasy world where, like, because then it opens the door, like, are there just magical death metal bands and rock bands? And like,
but I think it opens the door for like all of pop culture, because we know that they live in current times, but they're very medieval in how they do everything.
Yeah.
So it's like, do they watch TV?
Yeah, are there magic TV shows? And like, can muggles accidentally pirate magic TV shows?
Because they never talk about pop culture, like the bands they love or the TV shows they love, or like, is there movies just for the magic world?
It's just Quidditch, really.
Yeah,
it's just everyone just plays and watches Quidditch. That's all the entertainment in the world.
Yeah, but I mean, I got to say, I really enjoyed them. I've got hundreds of questions about things that I didn't quite understand, or more like there's spells that are introduced in earlier movies, and they're like, well, why didn't they just? Well, my whole thing all the time is, what if they can go back in time? Why don't they go back in time more often? Yeah,
the time turner dilemma is one of the like a pretty big plot hole. The way they cover it up in the books is that, and I don't know why she would be able to do this, but Professor McGonagall talks to the Ministry of Magic and they decide to destroy all the time turners because they can never really be used for good, which is a plot point that actually comes back in The Cursed Child, which is the play where the time turner, the last time turner that exists or whatever, is like one of the main. But the problem with that, and I hate The Cursed Child, because they change the way time travel works. So, like,
well, it was an interesting way that it worked. It was different to time travel movies because when you watch it for the first time, the things that they did in the time travel are happening to them first time. So they're not going back in time to change it. They're going back in time to deliver the fate that is true from their time traveling.
So everything that happened always happened, and there's no like branched pathways or anything like that, right? Which is a type of time travel. Like people say, like everything that has happened has already happened, and if you go back in time, you're just doing what fate would have done anyway and has already happened. Whereas in Cursed Child, they change it to like the Back to the Future style of time travel where, you killed like the killer butterfly thing. Right?
Yeah, and it changes the outcome.
Which is really dumb because the whole premise of the time travel changes between within the same universe. So it's really weird. But I am kind of curious, do you have a favourite movie of the ones of all of them?
Oh, I loved the last one. I liked when he got out of Hogwarts and he was just chilling. Oh, one thing I don't really understand is like when they can apparate and when they have to travel. Yeah. Because in the last movie, they're just like buzzing off everywhere in a puff of smoke.
Apparition, you can't apparate on the grounds of Hogwarts. There's a charm to make sure people, just for security purposes. Yeah. But apparation is a really hard thing to do. So in the books, they're learning how to apparate, and sometimes like you apparate, but you lose an ear. Like you leave your ear behind because you didn't apparate properly when you're learning how to do it. Yeah. Sort of like learning to drive. Like you crash a few times and then you finally get it, right? But yeah, so there's that.
That's the other thing throughout the whole series, and this would have been with the books as well. Hogwarts is so fucking dangerous. Yeah. It's just like no child should be anywhere near Hogwarts at any time. Not even when people are attacking it, but just in general.
I was actually thinking, I think in Chamber of Secrets in the movie, Dumbledore goes, or Hagrid goes, there's no safer place than Hogwarts.
Well, the inverse.
At home.
Literally anywhere away from this. At one point in one of the movies, like I think it's where they think Sirius Black is bad and that he's trying to get into Harry, the school. And McGonagall actually goes, this might be the end of Hogwarts. It's not safe here anymore. Yeah. It was never safe. Literally just going to Quidditch is not safe.
Yeah, the giant spider in the forest, Hagrid's three-headed dog. What do you think? Is there any major thing you didn't understand? Because the movies definitely have to condense, particularly with book 5 and 6. They really have to condense pretty big books into like 2-hour films.
Yep. Okay, I didn't understand right at the end, Snape and Lily, who's Harry Potter's mum, have the same Patronus charm. Yeah. What's that about?
So, you didn't get it?
No, I didn't get that.
All right. So the Patronus takes the form of something or someone that you love dearly, right? Yeah. Basically, the twist where Harry goes into the memories of Snape. Yeah. Snape loved Lily his whole life. And the book goes into it in a lot more detail in that chapter. But essentially, Snape was in love with Lily. This is the final kind of revelation of the books, I suppose, where you find out Snape met Lily when she was very young and he was very young. They went to school together, and slowly they kind of grew apart, but he always loved her. And
it hinted that James, who's Harry Potter's dad, was a bit of a jerk to Snape.
Yeah, so that's explored much more in the books as well. So James and Sirius were essentially Snape's bullies at school and, you know, tormented him a lot. And Snape always hated that Lily married James. And because Harry looked so much like James, he really hated that. But because he had his mother's eyes, that was why at the end when Snape dies, he says, "Look at me, you have your mother's eyes," because he wanted to see Lily's eyes one last time before he died. So I actually think that was one of the greatest moments of the Harry Potter books. Like, but I wasn't sure.
So what's the Patronus mean? They love each other.
No. So I think it's because Lily's Patronus is a doe, and that is because James Potter is an animagus who turns into a stag. Right?
Oh, I missed that completely. Right.
You missed the
No,
James.
I remember the stag is the Patronus, which was
yeah.
part of the time travel, which is actually Harry who did it. But I didn't know he was an animagus.
So Harry's Patronus is a stag because his dad could turn into a stag.
Right.
Lily's Patronus is a doe because stag, doe. Snape's Patronus was a doe because he loved Lily, essentially.
Right, okay.
Yeah. So Lily never loved Snape, but Snape loved Lily.
Okay, sure.
So yeah, that's why Snape was so mean to Harry, because he hated that he reminded him of James.
Yep. And are we meant to not like James by the end of it? Because then Harry Potter names his son after Snape and Dumbledore, but not his dad.
His other son is called James.
Okay.
Yeah, so he has a son called James, and then he has a son called Albus Severus.
By the way, in that last scene, 19 years later, where they're saying goodbye to their children on the train, they look no older whatsoever.
Oh, really? I haven't seen it in a while. But also, one thing I really like is Harry marries Ginny, Ron's sister, and they have 3 kids. James, Lily, and Albus Severus. And do you think Ginny was like, "Hey, do you reckon we could call one of them Molly, like after my mum, or Arthur, or even Fred, my brother who died in the war? Nah, let's do Albus Severus. Can James's middle name be Fred? I don't know. Maybe it should be Harry.
I am the chosen one.
Yeah.
So.
We could get a dog.
Yeah.
Call the dog Percy after your brother. So I always found that funny. And then Ron and Hermione's children are called like Hugo and something else weird that just had no resemblance.
Right. Well, they at least make Ron look older at that last scene where they're meant to be 20
really
years
fat.
older.
Yeah.
But Hermione looked like she could have been in a different scene and it wouldn't have skipped a beat at all.
Can I ask, was there a death in the movies that really sort of shocked you or just actually spoke? Like, was there something that actually upset you?
I think I knew that in the back of my head somewhere, I knew that Dumbledore died, so that didn't shock me.
And you understood that Dumbledore wanted Snape to kill, like Dumbledore asked Snape to kill him.
I got that part. Yeah,
cool.
I didn't really get. This is going into a whole nother area, but
we will get to the fan fiction soon. There was a listener who said, "I wish you'd just do the fan fiction. It's my podcast. We talk about Harry Potter. Go do your own."
The Deathly Hallows.
Hello,
sorry. I understood the 3 items and the logo and the story.
Yeah.
I just didn't really understand how it intersected with Harry versus Voldemort or the whole war. I knew that Voldemort had the Elder Wand, which is the strongest wand.
Yeah.
Is the invisibility cloak that Harry had the cloak from the story?
That is correct. So, Harry is actually, it doesn't explain it in the movie, but Harry and James are descendants of the Peveril, the 3 Peveril brothers who are and so that invisibility cloak that Harry has been passed down generations and got to Harry. So that is that is one of the Deathly Hallows.
Right. So because you never found out who gave him the cloak, but it's assumed that his dad gave it to someone at Hogwarts.
James gave it to Dumbledore. Dumbledore gave it to...
Right.
James gave it to Dumbledore because Dumbledore was studying the Deathly Hallows. So he asked James if he could have it, and then he gave it to Harry.
And then the Resurrection Stone.
Yeah.
Is that... So he spoke to his his friends and family at the end, like to get a G up before fighting Voldemort. But then he just drops it on the ground. Is that what brought him back to life?
No, he came back to life. It's funny. He came back to life because he had the Horcrux inside him. And when Voldemort killed him, it only killed the Horcrux it didn't kill him. I think it's something like that. I don't know.
Good.
The lore just gets a little bit weird towards the end of the series, but yeah, it's something to do with Voldemort actually killing his own Horcrux with the Elder Wand and not killing
what
him.
I thought would happen, actually in the back of my head, I think I knew that he ended up with Ginny, so I knew that he had to survive somehow.
Yeah.
But I thought the Horcrux was going to be Harry Potter's scar, just his scar.
So it just blows the scar off. The scar falls off and it's like,
No, but I thought he would be the last Horcrux. Voldemort would kill him. They would both die.
Yeah.
And then everybody else would be happy because even though they lost Harry Potter, the Dark World was dead.
Yeah.
Also, I didn't know that Malfoy's mum was Malfoy's mum until the very last scene where he called him over.
And you know Bellatrix is Malfoy's auntie, right?
No.
Okay. Well, so yeah. Very interesting. And you didn't answer my question, which was about the death.
Oh, who was the worst death? Okay.
Or just not the worst, like the saddest or unexpected.
I didn't know which of Ron's brothers died at the end.
Yeah.
Because I don't think they even say.
It's Fred.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I thought...
One of the twins.
I couldn't even tell if it was one of the twins. I thought it might have been the older guy.
Percy or
Billy.
Charlie. Yeah. Yeah.
Do we ever meet Charlie?
You don't meet Charlie in the films, but he's in the books a fair bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, Fred's death is definitely, in my opinion, the saddest and also just most unnecessary death. Like, it's so sad when you think about it.
Yeah.
And I love the line.
They completely go away from children's books by the end of it.
Yeah.
Like, if I watched that movie when I was a kid, it would have haunted the shit out of me.
Yeah. And I actually love in the books when Fred dies, there's this great... The writing is so great because he says I think George says a joke while they're fighting, and then Fred dies, and the line is Fred Weasley was lying dead on the floor, the ghost of his last laugh etched upon his face, and I always thought that was a really good kind of image.
Yeah. Can't believe you can remember the
I'll never
lines of the
forget
book.
that because and you understood why Snape said always at the end because that and then cast the doe.
No.
Well, he's saying. Dumbledore says, "Have you grown to care for the boy?" Snape says, "For the boy, he casts the Patronus. It's a doe." And then Dumbledore goes, "Lily," and he says, "Always," like because he always will love Lily.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
So the doe that rescues
Harry
in one of the forests. They do so many different
Snape's
forests.
Patronus.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Because Snape was such a dick to him the whole way through,
and that's
because
of James.
Yeah, but he could have chilled a little bit.
All right. Well, it would be great to do.
I've got so many more questions, so maybe it's a separate thing we can just do.
Can we do it part 2? Because I think people would be interested in listening to this because I'm always interested in hearing from people who haven't read the book.
And it's so fresh on my mind, so maybe we do it as a separate thing.
Let's read the fan fiction now, and then we'll come back after this. So we are going into chapter 7. You've read a chapter of this before, which we already did. I think Zach Miller, my friend, read the chapter you did on 20th Century Boy, my other pod. We are now up to chapter 7, as you said, and this chapter is called Derrick Goes Crazy. And just for reference, we were in the sorting ceremony. You obviously know what sorting is. And the sorting hat has been put on Derrick's head and it said expelled. And that's where we left off last time. That. Which has obviously never happened before.
And is Derrick the kid on the front cover of the artwork who's an idiot?
With the wand up his nose. Yep. And he's sort of like, I think I describe him in the book as the Ralph Wiggum-like character.
Yeah. Okay, good.
So here we go. You start
So I read.
Yep, you read, we respond. Read the name of the chapter and we go from there.
All right, Harry Potter and the Boys, chapter 7. Derrick Goes Crazy.
Which is not, like, you wouldn't get a chapter like that in the books, just for reference. Like, Ron goes crazy. Oh, Ron's bloody crazy.
I guess because I hadn't read the books, I've just watched all the movies. How often is there a chapter break? Are they small chapters like trying to keep you rolling onto the next one, or are they big chunky things?
No, they're pretty long. I remember in the first book, the chapter called The Mirror of Erazed was a very long chapter.
This is only 5 pages
this is a 5-page
with very
chapter.
large font size.
Here we go.
Derrick was having a fit. He was screaming so loud. No, he said. Please, he said. Ah, he said. Poo, he said, pointing at poo, he said, pointing at a huge piece of poo on the ground.
Couple of things there. Great voice acting. I really appreciate that you're putting that effort in. Also, yeah, there's at some point a big poo has been done, and in the midst of his fit, Derrick has gone, poo.
So are they in Hogwarts at the moment?
We're in the Great Hall, yeah. So this is in a big room with
Everybody's
all the
there.
Hogwarts students just
watching this occur.
And nobody else has noticed the poo.
I suppose so. Maybe Mr. Filch has to come in and clean it up, but we might find out.
There's a great scene in the very end of the Harry Potter movies where like the whole of Hogwarts is completely broken down, and Filch is in the background of one scene, like starting to sweep up the whole thing.
Yeah. So Mr. Filch is a squib. Yeah. That means someone who is born into a magical family but never gets magical powers, like the opposite of a mudblood, essentially.
Yep.
So it's actually, we've commented on this podcast before, it's quite barbaric that Dumbledore has hired Mr. Filch to work at a magic school to clean it up when he can't do magic. Anyone could just use a spell to clean up the mess, but he pays Mr. Filch to manually do all the labor in the school.
Yeah, like when they make the school again, do they just magic it back together? Or?
I assume
Because
so.
when Ron's house burns down, the family home burns down.
Yeah, which doesn't happen in the books.
Oh, really?
That's a weird thing they did in the movies that never happened in the books.
Oh, okay, so I guess you don't know then. Did they magic it back or did they rebuild it or how did they do it?
I don't know. It's non-canon. Just like this.
I thought I remember the piece of poo scene in the films, but no, I could be wrong.
Oh, speaking of poo, J.K. Rowling tweeted out in after the podcast, after the book series ended that, and this was a turning point for a lot of fans, where a lot of fans were just like, okay, everything J.K. Rowling says now does not count towards Harry Potter, because she said that up until like I think the 70s, witches and wizards did not use plumbing. Instead, they would soil themselves publicly and magic the evidence away. And then they discovered pipes and plumbing and decided to adopt Muggle technology and do it. And everyone was like, this is just an unnecessary detail that no one needed.
And even if you don't have pipes, couldn't you still go in like a room? It doesn't even have to be a toilet, but a cubicle, do the business, then magic it away. Why do you have to be like,
in the middle?
Sorry, Mike.
Yeah, it's like, hey, so how's your day?
You didn't just poo, did you, Mike?
Poois gonus. All right, back to HP and the Bee.
So he's yelled poo. Harry Potter stood up. Shut up! He shouted, and he slapped Derrick on the face.
So Derrick's, quite traumatized by this event. And Harry Potter, the headmaster of the school, instead of like, hey, we'll figure this out. He's gone, shut up! Smacked him across the face.
Now, I have never witnessed something like this, he went on. Oh, is this Derrick or Harry Potter speaking?
I think this is Harry.
Now, I've never witnessed something like this, he went on. And I'm not allowed to expel someone just because the hat told me to. See, it says right here in the rule book. Right here in the rule book. He walked up to Derrick and showed him Rule 8,1,246,923 in a book called Things That Harry Potter Cannot Do.
So Harry just carries around this book that must be this big, and he's just like, hey, Harry, could you get me a glass of water? Rule 200,142. Yeah, water.
Who wrote it?
Yeah, who wrote the book? So Harry cannot expel a student because the hat says to. Interesting.
And the book said, the book was called Things Harry Potter Cannot Do. And indeed, the rule stated that students could not be expelled because the sorting hat told them to.
Just reiterating, bit redundant there.
Harry went on. So, I guess we are going to have to make a new house called Expelled.
So all of the Hogwarts houses are named after the founders of Hogwarts. Yep. Godric Gryffindor, Rowena Ravenclaw, and then it's just like, Expelled. You're in the Expelled house.
And then when they look over the Great Hall and there's 4 perfectly sized tables with all the students, and then where's Expelled house? Just
one of those like little plastic stools.
With just Derrick on it.
And one of those kiddie plastic seats. So Derrick is going to be in his own house at Hogwarts. So, Hogwarts is about community, being in your common room, going to class with your classmates, and then he's just,
And does he get his own Quidditch team and everything that the other houses get?
I don't know. I really don't know.
Sorting hat. Could I have like at least 2 more students in my house? Harry Potter, where
I think we're about.
Oh yeah, Harry went on. So I guess we're going to have to make a new house called Expelled. But I must say that Derrick is a disgrace to all wizards. So not just physical abuse, emotional torment as well.
This, when I was reading this on 20th Century Boy, I think Derrick is a disgrace to all wizards is a recurring thing that comes up throughout the book. Right. And people like really, really sort of like connected with it. So it's almost become the slogan of the book.
Right. So Harry's not the first one to say it.
No, this is the first instance of it, but I think it recurs. And I actually remember when I wrote this at primary school and we used to read it out to the class, that I do have a distinct memory.
You read this in front of the class.
Yeah, I do have a distinct memory of everyone in the class chiming in and going, Derrick is a disgrace to all wizards whenever it came up.
So wait, what was this class you were taking? I guess primary school.
It was just like our grade
show and
3-4 class, and it was Friday afternoons. The teacher just let us read this. Like, it wasn't this exact version; it was a handwritten version. But we just used to read it in front of the class.
Wow!
Yeah.
So it wasn't part of a project or anything. It's like Mike's done extracurricular work, and we're going to read it.
Me and a bunch of other boys used to write it outside the canteen at lunchtime.
Oh, so this is not just your work. This is group effort.
Clearly, you haven't listened to the podcast. No. So I wrote with a bunch of other classmates at my primary school.
Yep.
We used to at lunchtime write this book, handwritten in like an exercise book, right? And then when I was like in year 7, I found that book and I decided to kind of type it up and add bits to it and change it a bit, and that's what we're reading now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Derrick is a disgrace to all wizards, says Harry Potter. Derrick couldn't have been happier. Derrick couldn't have been happier. He had a whole house to himself.
So he goes from this impending fear of being expelled to like, oh, I just get a whole house to myself.
Well, being expelled, Harry Potter, the headmaster, slaps him in the face and then calls him a disgrace to all wizards. He goes, my own house, pretty cool.
Hope I win the house cup.
Harry stood up once more. Let the feast begin, he said.
I just think, you haven't been here for all the chapters, but just so you're up to date, 2 chapters ago, several students were killed when Hagrid fell on them and crushed them to death. This is all in the same, like we're probably within 10 minutes in real time of that happening. Several teachers fainted from the amount of commotion that was happening. And we also had the sorting ceremony. A student has nearly been expelled. And then Harry just goes, all right, guys, start the feast.
Let's eat.
Multiple students are dead at this point.
But I gotta say, it's not too far from Hogwarts would have some like really terrible stuff happen. Yeah. And then it was just like, but, back to class, everybody. Like 10 points from Gryffindor.
I actually always think like, you know what a mudblood is, or like a non-magical blood person. So, Moaning Myrtle, the character?
Yeah.
So she was a Muggle-born student who came to Hogwarts and died at her...
Who lived in the toilets, but now we know why did they even have toilets, because they just shut their pants.
So Moaning Myrtle died in her 2nd year at Hogwarts. Can you just imagine being her parents? So some wizard guy comes to your house and says, hey, your daughter has magic blood. We'd like to bring her to invisible magic school and teach her how to do magic. Oh, this is kind of weird, but I guess so. 2 years later, hey, I'm so sorry. Your daughter was murdered by a basilisk that the Dark Lord of... and now she's going to live in the toilets.
Yeah. She still goes, you guys can't come to the school though because you're not magic.
Muggles can't go to Hogwarts, so they can't
Students speak to her every day.
Just Dumbledore prepping for that conversation like, all right, guys, so... Sorry about all this. Just like how angry you would be.
Harry Potter said, let the feast begin. Harry Potter clicked his fingers and the most disgusting food in the world appeared on the table. Chicken bones, rooster eggs, dolphin skin, hippogriff feathers, and to drink, blood from a ladybird.
Well, roosters don't lay eggs, so this must be some kind of magical female rooster.
So is Harry Potter... the worst person ever now. Like in this 2 pages, he's only been abusive and then to feed the children and he can feed them anything he likes. Yeah. He feeds them the worst food possible.
It seems as though since everything that happened to him in his childhood and growing up and all the stuff, the fan theory for the fans of this podcast is that Harry Potter is just so traumatized that he's living in some fantasy world, more fantasy than actual Harry Potter world, and none of the teachers have the courage to tell him, hey, I think you need some help, right?
He saved us from Dumbledore, guys. Come on. It would be worse with...
Voldemort. We can't tell him to leave. Like, who else is going to run the school?
The chicken bones aren't so bad. Thanks, Harry. Who's that teacher there?
Oh, no, wait, we're still here.
Sorry. They're just eating the ladybird blood. Tom looked over to the teacher's table. They all had nice stuff. Chicken wings, chicken eggs, dolphin meat, hippogriff meat, and to drink, wine. Rob looked too. He saw a tall, thin, weird, ugly, late 30s man.
Okay, so this is where we are about to meet another major character of the book.
Who's that teacher there? He asked one of his brothers, Jeremy.
And this is one of Rob's, I think, 600 siblings.
They're all at the Great Feast.
Well, we assume some of them must be.
But nobody can go to the new house. That's Mr. Charger. He's the meanest teacher ever. What, even after Harry Potter?
So Mr. Charger is on the front cover of this podcast artwork. He is like the tall, weird, late 30s man who's on the front cover next to Harry Potter.
That's Mr. Charger. He's the meanest teacher ever. He's not even magic. He is a squib.
Okay, so squib, as I explained. Yeah.
Yep, magic parents.
So really weird that a non-magic student is teaching magic at the magic school.
Well, maybe you could teach the Muggle studies or whatever it is. Because in the final film... they're torturing, or maybe it's the second to last, they're torturing a teacher, and they were like, she was the head of Muggle studies. Yes. So like, we never met that teacher.
That in the books, you kind of know that teacher, but she's certainly not a main character.
We didn't even know that was a class.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't look like there's ever many teachers because they sit up the front. It's like two to his left, two to his right, and Hagrid.
In the movies, when you need to meet a teacher, that teacher is suddenly there. In the books, a lot of the teachers are there from the start, and they're mentioned from the start.
Sorry, that's Mr. Charger. He's not even magic. He is a squib. His parents were magic, but he isn't. The only thing he can teach is potions.
Okay, so he's a potions teacher. Getting some Snape similarities here. And this book so far has been following sort of the beats of the original Harry Potter book.
Yep, like heavily inspired.
Yeah.
I loved how from the first book, they were like, Snape really wants to be the Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher.
Yeah.
Every year, that teacher gets fired or expelled or leaves.
Yeah.
And every year it's like, and we've got a new teacher for Defense Against the Dark Arts. It's not Snape.
Do you want to know the in-universe explanation for that?
Yeah.
Tom Riddle, when he left Hogwarts, he came back and applied to be the Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher at Hogwarts. Dumbledore didn't give him the job, right? And then it's said that Voldemort put a curse on the position, which is why every year there's a new Defense Against
so it
the
wasn't
Dark
just the 3 years in a book or whatever.
No,
I
think it's something that's what they say in the
Didn't
books.
they start pick up on that? For 35 years in a row,
I guess
none of those teachers
I think J.K. Rowling just throws shit out there, sees if it sticks, and then people are like, but what about this? And she's like, the wizards used to vanish their poo. What's going to distract from this Dumbledore's game? Oh, God, no one's asking about the time turner anymore. Thank God. Now the real
just stay one lie ahead of everybody else. Rob looked at the man. So did the others. They knew he would be trouble.
Oh.
Derrick seemed to love the food. He had his own table and he finished it all. He walked over to the 6 boys and asked if he could have theirs. The boys decided not to be rude and said yes. At the end of the feast, another student had died.
So there's no explanation for those. Just by the end of the feast, another student died. Assuming by gluttony.
Might as well go to bed, kids. It's just too much is going on here. Too many deaths.
All right, guys.
Let's wrap this up.
Oh, God, another one. God, that's 17 for today. That's a new record.
Lucky Rob bought his 600 brothers.
We're never running out of students.
Okay, it doesn't seem to go on to explain how the student died. At the end of the feast, another student had died. Professor Granger, in brackets Hermione, stood up.
And we have to do a quick round of applause for the first female character in the book. 7 chapters in. The first female character, not an original character, an existing character, but a strong character nonetheless.
Just reading ahead to see if she dies in the next couple of pages. No, it doesn't look like she does. Hermione says, a few announcements need to be said before we head back to our dormitory.
A few announcements need to be said?
And somebody just died.
No, but just we need to make a few announcements. That's all that needed to be.
Firstly, Professor Longbottom has asked... So you didn't really write any new characters except the 6 boys, hey? Everybody's from the books.
So, Professor Longbottom Neville, of course, who in the last chapter was... it's said that students speculate he may be an idiotus, a magical idiot.
All right, that is some original work then. That's not from the book. Firstly, Professor Longbottom has asked that if you would like to come down to his office for a lesson in being an idiot, then please do so immediately. Professor Longbottom smiled idiotically.
How does that lesson play out? All right, guys, so you want to be an idiot, eh? Well,
get your books out.
It's not as easy as you think.
Also, didn't they... I felt like by the end of it, Longbottom had redeemed himself from being the kind of idiot of the school.
Well, look what Harry was like at the last book. He's certainly not what he's like. A lot changes in 50 years, Jack.
Hermione goes on. Secondly, there is a party in the Great Hall Monday of the last week of term. No students allowed. Teachers only. If students enter, they will not be expelled.
So it's like, is that her like inviting students to come to the teacher's party? Hey, come in, I'll give you some beer. She's one of the cool teachers.
Third and finally, Professor Potter has asked me to remind you that Derrick is a disgrace to all wizards.
So within the time that Harry said that, he's gone to Hermione. Sorry, could you please just remind them that Derrick's a disgrace to all wizards? Oh yes, of course.
What do we want to do about the student who just died?
Oh, don't worry, just remind them about Derrick.
Harry stood up. He clicked his fingers. Suddenly, all the nice food appeared on the tables.
Oh, well, that's nice of him.
Go to bed, he told everybody. My food.
So he's literally like, he's given them terrible food and then he's like, all right, guys, it was just a practical joke. Jimmy's died. Come on, have a feast. No, it's my food.
Harry Potter does not reflect his character in the books one bit.
Yeah.
Everyone was still starving because they didn't eat any of the gross food except for Derrick. Mm-hmm. They were led back to the Gryffindor common room by Roberto Robson, who was Rob's brother.
So the Robson family have so many kids that they've inadvertently named one Roberto and one just Rob.
Yeah. And do you think it was a case of like, we've run out of names or we forgot there was already a Roberto?
I think it's a forgot. Because we don't know if Rob is short for Roberto or Robert.
He was Rob's brother. He was a perfect and very...
Prefect.
Oh, sorry, beg your pardon. He was a prefect and he was very mean. When Luke touched one of the moving paintings, he got really angry.
There always was that one kid at school who was just like the annoying teacher's pet. Like,
did you have prefects? Because we didn't.
Yeah, we had prefects and officers.
I find it so weird that there was students in charge of other students' behaviours. So they could give detention?
No, the prefects were just a meaningless title. No.
What about officers?
Officers were like the reject prefects.
All right. When they finally arrived at the portrait of the anorexic lady...
Oh gosh, that's one that hasn't aged well. And obviously in the book it's the fat lady.
Well, but this is the fat lady as well. When they finally arrived at the portrait of the anorexic lady, the fat lady went on The Biggest Loser.
So I guess wizards do have TV, or did she go on the Muggle version? And was she in the painting when she was on the show? Well, it's good it's good she lost weight. It's bad that she's gone the other way now.
I guess they don't do like... I never knew when there was a spell for like, weight loss spell. Bling, I'm skinny now. Like there's one scene where Hermione's giving Harry a haircut. It's like, surely of all the spells they could do, like a trim around the sides is a possible spell.
Quick cut.
Robert had forgotten the password.
Oh, God.
The Gryffindors...
Robert or Roberto?
No. There's a new character.
I think I'm going to say that's a typo.
That's meant to be Roberto?
I think so.
Do you want me to update it?
No, let's leave it as the author intended.
Robert had forgotten the password. The Gryffindors had... Now, are you spelling Gryffindor wrong or they just doesn't know how to spell Gryffindor?
I'm pretty sure there's 2 Fs in Gryffindors, but I don't know if Microsoft Word would recognize the word Gryffindor. It's accepting it, okay. Yeah.
The Gryffindors had to wait outside for a whole hour while Roberto went to ask Harry what it was.
So
long old walk.
They're there for an hour. How long does it take him to go find Harry and be like, hey, sorry, what's the password again?
Leave my food. When Roberto came back, he was holding his wand. It turned out Harry had forgotten the password as well, and that Harry had told him a specific thing to do in order to open the door. He aimed his wand at the anorexic lady and said, Avada Kedavra.
Avada Kedavra, which is the killing curse. So, barbarically, Roberto's gone to Harry. He said, hey, sorry, what's the password again? He's like, oh, can't actually remember it, but I'll tell you a specific thing you can do to open it. Go up to the fat lady and use the killing curse and kill her.
And it worked. The anorexic lady was dead and the door opened.
Well, I want to apologize to everyone for this awful just scene that we are in right now.
But the second female character to enter the book, the anorexic lady.
Who is now dead.
The door opened. There was a strange, awkward silence after that. Luckily, it was broken by a PA announcement. Attention all teachers and students. Just a reminder that Derrick is a disgrace to all wizards. I can see now how when you're setting up in front of your primary school class that it becomes a fun thing to say.
And also disgrace is written dis and then not grace, grace with a C. But also Hogwarts has a PA announcer. Like, is it Harry doing it, or is there a receptionist at Hogwarts like, sorry, excuse this interruption, teachers and students, just a reminder that Derrick is a disgrace to all wizards, and could Robertson, could you please come to the office, please?
And the anorexic lady is dead. Derrick was going crazy. He was so happy about having his own common room and dormitory.
Okay, so Derrick just gets his own area. his own common room. It's not really a common room.
I also think the amount it keeps saying Derrick is happy, I think Derrick is in big denial about this disgrace to all wizards thing, because it's come up 3 times in the last hour, but every time it says it, it goes back to him. He's like, yeah, Derrick's so happy. He loves her. He loves her.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll learn more about Derrick on the last page of the chapter now, so hopefully there's a couple more laughs or deaths.
So Derrick was going crazy. He was so happy having his own common room and dormitory. He didn't know what to say. He went to his common room, which was behind the portrait of the enchanted squirrel, which was located in the dungeons, like the Slytherins.
So the Slytherin common room is in the dungeons.
Password, said the squirrel in a squeaky voice. Sorry, I'll do that again. Password, said the squirrel in a squeaky, high-pitched voice. Farting fantastic, shouted Derrick as loud as possible. The door opened at once.
Is there something about just being 13 and just thinking farts are inherently funny?
Yeah. I mean, seeing the poo on the floor before would have been the best thing to a primary school audience ever.
The password is farting fantastic to this dormitory that we can only assume was built.
Just made.
And Harry's gone up, squirrel, there's only one student. Just make it like, I don't know, farting fantastic or something. I got to deal with the fat lady. She's dead. Bloody hell, got to hire someone else.
Derrick was tired and went to bed straight away, but he stayed up all night talking to his imaginary friend, Jijo Joji.
Ambiguous gender, could be another female.
At about 3 o'clock in the morning, Jijo told Derrick that he was too tired, so... Male character. Jijo told Derrick that he was too tired, so they both went to sleep.
Which is an amazing... When your imaginary friend tells you that they're too tired... Hey, Derrick...
Let's stay up all night telling stories.
I've loved chatting. I got to get to sleep.
Oh, come on, you're imaginary. You don't even get tired. I didn't tell you about the password yet on the front door.
So much stuff on tomorrow.
Okay, can we talk in the morning?
I might have a class, but yeah.
But you'll sit next to me.
So Derrick has an imaginary friend called Jijo Joni. End of chapter. Thank you for reading, Jack. What did you think?
Oh, we learned a lot about the school. We learned a lot about Harry's true self, or has Harry already shown himself as a vicious
There's
moron?
a little bit of that so far that we've gotten. Mr. Charger, we learn a lot more about him.
I feel like we're going to hear more about Mr. Charger.
Yes.
How long is this book? How many chapters?
I think there's like
the scroll reel, there's still a while to go.
Yeah, there's a lot of chapters. And this is only book 1.
How many books?
There's 7 books. Yeah, it's going to be a long-running podcast. The last chapter...
Oh, no, we can't read the end.
The last chapter is called The End? Question mark. So I'd hazard a guess that it is not the end of the chapter. Do you have time for a quick email?
Yes.
Okay, well... Go for it. Send one. No, I'm just I'm just joking. as always, the official...
It's hot in here.
It is really hot in here. I told you it would be. It's very hot. Sorry, man.
No, that's okay.
The official correspondent of the show, Amy. Amy has written in again, and lots of people really love Amy's contribution to this show. Anything that we need researched or checked out, Amy does. Lots of people shipping me and Amy, which is kind of weird. Do you know what shipping is?
Oh, man. What's this whole I'm too old to read Harry Potter? I don't know what shipping is.
Yeah, lots of people are shipping me and Amy,
Have you met her?
I've never met Amy, but anyway.
Have you seen a photo?
I don't know what Amy looks like, so sorry, Amy. It's not weird. I'm not trying to make it weird, but yeah. Hi, Mike. I saved episode 6 for my plane ride home and was glad to be wearing a face mask so people couldn't see me laughing to myself at the airport when Harry pulled the sorting hat out of his underpants. Because that's so that happened last chapter with Sam Garlep. If you didn't hear it, go check it out. Or when Idiot Loserface, one of the new students, was sorted into Hufflepuff. So Idiot Loserface is a student and he's described quite well as an idiotic boy with a loser-like face.
Hufflepuff don't do much, do they?
No,
they hardly ever get mentioned.
Hufflepuff's the shit house. No offense, Huffles. Lots of Hufflepuffs listen to this show. Sorry, guys.
What do you mean lots of Hufflepuffs listen to this show?
Well, I was going to ask you, what house would you say you're in?
I'm not in a house.
I'd definitely say you're a Gryffindor. Based on
thanks, man. That's Harry Potter's house.
Yeah. Now,
what are you?
I'm a Ravenclaw, the smart, nerdy house.
Is that what they are?
Yeah. There's loose traits associated with each house. Yeah. So Gryffindor's like bravery.
That's me.
That kind of thing. Now,
is Slytherin? No, let's save all the real Harry Potter questions
we've actually decided we're going to do a bonus ep where Jack just asked me questions about Harry Potter and we'll discuss it. Is that cool?
Yeah, but maybe not today because it's so hot in here. Or maybe we go for a walk in the breeze.
Now, this is what's really interesting. And last chapter, we were introduced to a character called Gemini Jones, a new character, a boy. And Gemini Jones was described as being identical in appearance to one of the boys, Lockie, right?
Yep.
The book actually said, if this was a movie, they would be played by the same actor.
Oh, I like that.
Now, Sam Garlep, who was on last week, sorry, what were you
I was going to say, that's like the first thing in the book that is a cool feature that like I could imagine being in one of the real books. Okay. Like they get to the Great Hall and they're like, why are you over there as well as being here?
Yeah.
And there's a bit of mystery to it.
But here's what's really interesting about it. Sam Garlep said, I doubt Gemini will ever appear again, and it's just like a red herring or something.
Yep.
Here's what Amy has come up with. I think we can all see that Gemini Jones is going to be Lockie's evil twin. That was really clever of you to name him Gemini because Gemini means twin.
Oh.
And the star sign Gemini, I looked it up, is twin. I know nothing about star signs now.
No, I thought the Pisces were the twins. Oh, no,
I
Pisces
think it's
the
Gemini.
fish. Yeah, no,
Gemini means twin. Now, I'm going to say this. Personally, I wrote this book when I was 13. I don't think I ever knew that Gemini means twins.
Could it be one of your friend's suggestions for the name?
Possibly, or maybe I just don't remember like looking up twin like names for like it's possible, but I'm gonna say this is an extremely big coincidence.
I love
honestly.
that though.
It reminded me of a book I read for uni where characters turn out to be long lost twins and Gemini is mentioned. Pretty good for 13-year-old Mike. I got out of hotel quarantine yesterday, so I'm reunited with my Harry Potter books. I'll start reading them again soon and will include any questions or musings in my email as they come up. Like you guys mentioned, I've always wondered about the number of students at Hogwarts. Are there extra characters that aren't mentioned, or are the only girls in Gryffindor really Hermione, Lavender Brown, and Pavati Patil? Because in Harry's year, there's only really those 3 Gryffindor girls mentioned.
Yeah, but you see a lot of background characters. You can't go through every character.
You assume there are other characters, yeah. Also, just wanted to correct you, Sectum Sempra isn't a non-verbal spell. Sam Garlep said that. Levicorpus is, but I thought Levicorpus is used in the films verbally. Blah, 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 blah. Total. Cool. Cheers, Amy, official correspondent of the show. Now, for all the shippers out there, P.S., and this was sent on the 12th of December, my birthday.
Ooh.
P.S., I turned 23 today, and from Instagram, looks like we have the same birthday. Happy birthday, Mike. Happy birthday to you too, Amy.
A couple of Geminis.
No, Sagittariuses, but yeah. There you go.
Well, Mike, thanks for having me on the pod.
Thanks for coming on, man. I had a really good time, and I hope you'll come on again sometime when we.
I would love to read another chapter.
Yeah, cool. Where can people find like stuff you do? Just plug your stuff.
Oh, go and check out my podcast because it's. I mean, though I've finished the series, it's still available, and I'm really proud of it.
Yeah.
It's evergreen. Jackie Road Studios. There might be a few topical references sprinkled here and there. Please ignore those if that is you listening to it now.
And you can check out all the songs from that podcast on Spotify.
Yeah.
Type in Jack Post, right?
Jack Post, you can see songs I've done on Hamish and Andy, and as well as all the songs I've done on this podcast.
And they're awesome.
Thanks, man.
And I will just plug my stuff. Please go check out my other podcast, 20th Century Boy, which is just more of my day-to-day kind of life stuff. Jack's been on an episode, so go check that out. And Release the Sounds, our band, you can check that out on Spotify as well. And radiomike.com.au is my website. Radio.mike is my Instagram. Thanks for listening to Harry Potter and the Boys. See you later, Gandalf haters.
Derrick is a bloody disgrace to all the wizards.